catch up today. But the one thing we did miss last week, Stormy Daniels testified in the Trump New York civil trial. Now, or not civil trial, criminal trial. Um, Now, I want to cover this because I think this is important to understand. The case is that he falsified his business records to cover up the affair with Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal, and they also paid off a doorman. Um, they paid them off to cover that up. Now, falsifying your business records, it's a minor misdemeanor. It's a slap on the wrist. It's not a big deal. Paying people off to keep quiet, also legal. Not a big deal. I mean, depending on your view, but it is legal. So that's not the big issue. The big issue is he did it to subvert the election, and he used some campaign money to do that. So when he does all that, now he's doing the misdemeanor falsification of the business records, but he's doing it in commission of another crime, which makes it a felony. It's the same concept of if I break into somebody's house, it's breaking and entering, it's a minor offense, it's a misdemeanor. But if I commit another crime while I'm in their house, like I steal something, now it's burglary, now it's a major felony. So that's the whole issue here. So everybody's focused on the sex and everything else, but the real issue here is, did he pay these people off to manipulate the election? If he did, it's a felony. And that's all that the prosecution's trying to establish. And Michael Popok's going to hammer this home a little bit better for you. So I just want to get that out of the way before we get into what Stormy said.
It's Donald Trump in New York. It's about the checks, not the sex. I know we spent a lot of time. It was really interesting and titillating to hear about, the sex life or the sex acts or the sexual misconduct of Donald Trump. Sure, I wanted to hear about the rolled up magazine. It even made the judge laugh when Stormy Daniels talked about it. But this case, keep your eye on the ball. Keep your eye on the prize. Keep your mind on the money and the money on your mind. It's about the checks, not the sex.
And so he's right. That's what it's about. So the fact that he had sex with Stormy Daniels, whether it was consensual or not, I mean, it's kind of vague. The way she describes it, it's not consensual, but she said it was sort of consensual. But that could have been a separate crime. But the real crime here that he's on trial for is covering this up to manipulate the election. That's it. And the whole point of having Stormy Daniels testify that she was paid off, that she did have sex with him, is it establishes motive. And that's all it really does. She's not like the big key witness here. She's probably the most exciting witness we're going to hear from, but probably the most interesting. But she's not the key witness because she can't attest to anything he actually did for paying her off. She wasn't there. She got paid off through Michael Cohen and Keith Davidson, who was her lawyer at the time. So all she's really establishing here is, does Trump have a motive to hide this because he thinks it's going to damage in the election? And that was where her testimony became relevant, is when describing the act, and she described it in incredible detail. She could describe the tile in the bathroom, she described the layout of the hotel room they were in, the sexual position, what she was wearing, what he was wearing. I mean, it was a very credible story that she gave. And she's consistent with the story she's been telling now for the last few years. The other thing about it that was interesting is that I could kind of overlooked, but the prosecution kind of hammered home really well, was this one time, thing that happened back in 2006. And yet he doesn't pay her off until 2016, right before the election. So for 10 years, he didn't care about this, right? And it wasn't an issue. But then all of a sudden, when the election's coming, now it's an issue. So it lends to the credibility. Plus, the salaciousness of what happened, where he basically invited her to dinner. She met him at the hotel room. Then he cornered her, basically told her if she wanted to be successful and have a career, he was going to put her on The Apprentice, but she had to sleep with him. So he kind of coerced her, his bodyguard standing outside the door. So he kind of coerced her into it. And she did it, and, she said she blacked out at one point because probably she was traumatized. Because she was in her 20s at the time, and he was like 60. So I can see where it was pretty shocking to her. Now, that's the story, but the horrificness of the story, and just how salacious and gross it was, and sleazy, that's what he was afraid of getting out, especially right after the Access Hollywood tape where he talked about grabbing women by the pussy. So now this lends to the motive that, Trump has a huge motive to bury this story before the election, because if it gets out in the election, he's screwed, right? Because at that point, already, a lot of the GOP was already leaving his side. They were basically throwing him under the bus because of the Access Hollywood thing. If one more thing had come out, it could have buried him, buried the election. So that's why this is important, because it lends to his motive. It doesn't lend to the crime. She can't attest to the crime at all. All she can attest to is what happened, which establishes motive on his part. But she can't tell you what his motive actually was. She doesn't know any of that. So I wanted to point all that out, because it's not, she didn't really, it was interesting, it was exciting in the press, but it wasn't the big point of the case. The big point of the case is all the paperwork that followed up that shows that he did all this to cover it up. And then Michael Cohen is going to attest directly to it. But you got to remember, too, David Pecker came in, was the first witness for the prosecution, and David Pecker already established that he did this with Trump for the first two payments, for the first two incidents, right, for the doorman and for Karen McDougal. The third incident's the only one that hasn't really been established. They pretty much established he's guilty of the first two. Right now, they're just nailing down the last one. So that's all that's going on. But what happens is you see it jump back and forth. So I wanted to get a couple comparisons here, because the media, you know, jumps all over this, and understandably so. It gets clicks. I mean, I'm doing it here, so can't really judge them. But I want to give you a kind of an example. So here's Lawrence O'Donnell. Here's a guy who's more sort of center-left kind of guy. And he's going to talk a little bit about, but he's going to pull out actual transcripts, and he's going to read them to you of the cross-examination from the Trump's lawyer trying to discredit Stormy Daniels' story. And I think this is interesting how he does it, and then we're going to look at some comparisons from Fox News. So we'll jump into Lawrence right now.
Against Stormy Daniels. The orange turd landed an hour...
Oh, let me point this out. Stormy Daniels made that was one of the things of the cross-examination, was they pulled out a tweet where somebody made fun of her, and she referred to Donald Trump as the orange turd. And so that was a big thing in court, where they had to keep repeating, so by orange turd, what did you mean thing? So he's going to get into that. Sorry, I didn't give you that context.
Into a belabored cross-examination by Susan Necheles that was repetitive, tedious, and almost entirely irrelevant. At 10:20 a.m., high-priced lawyer Susan Necheles said to Stormy Daniels, quote, "Isn't it a fact that you keep posting on social media how you're going to be instrumental in putting President Trump in jail?" Answer, show me where I said I would be instrumental in putting President Trump in jail. Question, all right, Ms. Necheles, if we could show the witness J43, please. Question, do you recognize that as your post? Answer, yes. Question, and I don't see the word instrumental or jail. Ms. Necheles, blow it up a little bit more. Susan Necheles then shows the post on all of the screens in the courtroom for the jurors to see and for the spectators to see and for Donald Trump to see. And then she says, quote, "You were responding to the post, someone else's post there." Answer, yes. Someone calling me a human toilet. So I capitalized on the joke. Question, the other post, Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels, a.k.a. the human toilet, are their star witnesses, right? Answer, yes. You said, exactly, making me the best person to flush the orange turd down. Answer, yes. So Susan Necheles brought the orange turd into the courtroom and kept it there. The questioning about the orange turd went on and on. Stormy Daniels said, quote, "I don't see instrumental or jail there. You're putting words in my mouth." Question, so when you said you were the best person to flush the orange turd down, you weren't saying you were going to be instrumental in causing him to be convicted of a crime? That was not what you meant? Answer, no. Question, what does that mean? Answer, I'm pretty sure this is hyperbole. If somebody calls me a toilet, I can say flush somebody. See how that works? Now, trying to explain a joke to a lawyer in court is always pointless. Question, You said you were going to flush President Trump. Answer, I didn't say President Trump. It says orange turd. So if that's what's interpreted by you, question, what do you mean? Answer, I don't know what I mean. Question, you have no idea? Answer, I'm also not a toilet, so it's all... I'm asking you whether you knew what you meant when you said an orange turd. Answer, yes, I do. Question, what did you mean? Answer, I meant I'm not a human toilet, so if they want to make fun of me, I can make fun of them. Question, you don't want to admit you meant Mr. Trump? Answer, I absolutely meant Mr. Trump. Question.
Oh, we don't need to watch anymore, but you see, she was honest. I mean, she was pretty direct, and the cross-examination, from what I read, did not go super well and dragged on and on. She cross-examined her for a couple hours, and never really got anywhere. But that was what I heard. Now.